We're talking about a referendum that's happening on December 17, because all Ghanaians of sound mind and above the age of 18 will be called upon to perform one important civic duty to decide if the constitution should be amended to make it possible to have our metropolitan, municipal and district chief executives elected on a partisan basis. Until now, MMDCEs have been appointed by the president, and they've been answerable only mostly, well, to the president instead of the people who he or she governs. But that system has been blamed for the country's slow pace of development and decentralization. So on December 17, like I said, all of us will have the power to change that situation by voting yes or no, if you like, on referendum day. Today we begin the weekly series of engagements with experts as part of the Ghana Journalists Association's advocacy for a yes vote. Vote yes on the day, but why? That weekly conversation will explain, and Dr. Kwesi Jonah, who is a senior research fellow and head of advocacy and institutional relations at the Institute of Democratic Governance, will be joining me in the studio shortly. But first, here is a report on the referendum.
With just 2 months to the December 17 referendum expected to approve an amendment of Article 55, Clause 3 of the Constitution, which institutionalizes the exclusion of political parties from local level elections, education and sensitization campaigns have intensified. A 40% turnout during the vote and a 75% yes vote is required to push the amendment through. At a public conversation organized by the Institute of Democratic Development, IDEG, chairperson of the National Commission on Civic Education, Josephine Nkrumah, called for an all-inclusive process to make room for minority groups.
One of the key things that we must begin to question is democracy is meant to be inclusive and participatory. What mechanisms are we putting in place to ensure that marginalized groups are properly included in this process? Not just the process of towards the referendum, not just the process of making the or not just the issue of making the process fair, free and transparent, but beyond that, how do we ensure that women, persons with disability, youth groups can fully participate, because we are looking at an inclusionary system of governance.
She tells JoyNews the role her outfit is playing to ensure the goal of decentralization is achieved.
As an institution, NCCE, ours is to educate. And so we are there to educate and to bring out the issues, provide a platform for the issues to be discussed dispassionately, but with the sole objective that people understand and make informed decisions come December 17th.
Executive Director of IDEG, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete, believes there must be deliberate efforts to ensure development reaches the grassroots, who will be key in determining who heads the assembly if the referendum gets an overwhelming yes vote.
Also, as organizations, we've had 27 years to look at political parties in action. We've seen their strength, at least because of them, as political and civil rights are protected. Well, we've seen them performing poorly on development and delivering what they promise, and we are not satisfied with development after 27 years and so on. So if we're going into looking at what we must do so parties serve as well, I think we'll pay less attention to their making them electoral and pop. That we've seen. We even want to regulate that. But we are going to concentrate on what will make them give us the development goods.
Other groups, including the Ghana Journalists Association, the Peace Council and Labour groups, have pledged their support for the process. Chairman of the Peace Council, Reverend Professor Emmanuel Asante, wants a lot more education to drum home the need for the exercise.
It is good that we have done something like this here, but we should also know that Ghana is bigger than Accra. As to whether the thing is sinking down, going down to the majority of the people out there, that's another matter. So as far as I'm concerned, I think the NCCE has a lot of responsibility in this matter to ensure that people are well educated, they know what the issue is about, so that they can go out there and vote.
The Christian Council says its members will use the pulpits and churches to spread the word as the election draws closer.
It is extremely important that at the local governance level, the people who lead us must have an intimate relationship with the people on the ground. In other words, the people must have the power to appoint and to disappoint them. This project has the full support of the Christian Council of Ghana. Our churches will use our pulpits to mobilize the masses to come and vote yes on that day, because we believe that that will lead to a robust health, education, water, and sanitation system.
Advocates believe the process would allow a proper administration of the common fund and make the elected representatives accountable to the people.
Or joining the conversation with your views and comments on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'll share our WhatsApp number is 054-010-909. That's 0540-10-909. 10-909. Very easy. Well, I do have Dr. Kwesi Jonah. He's a senior research fellow and head of advocacy and institutional relations with IDEC in the studio. We'll also be joined by the GJA as we go along. But let's start the conversation with Dr. Jonah. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
So, a lot of people have asked the question, why should I even vote yes? And here on this platform, we've discussed why it's even necessary to go partisan. Instead of just, stick to what we know. If you could give us a bit background, based on your research, why it is necessary to vote and to vote on a partisan basis, then we can go on from there.
Thank you so very much. You would realize that in 1988, we introduced the president local government system for the first time in the history of this country, in which the president appoints the chief executive. 70% of assembly members are directly elected, and the president appoints 30% of the people. Now, we operated the system until maybe 7th January 1993, when we entered constitutional government for the first time. Now, when we entered constitutional democracy, we rolled the existing system, which didn't include parties, into the constitution. Don't forget, in 1988, when we introduced the system, there were no parties. We were under administrative government, so there were no political parties. But we come to multi-party governance era, and we rolled the system intact into the constitution. Therefore, since 1993, when we started practicing the present multi-party democracy, we have operated our local government system without political parties. What have been the disadvantages? What happens then is that since there are no political parties, since it is the president who appoints the chief executive, the president of the day, whether he's NDC, NPP, will appoint only his people to be executives of all the 260 districts. All the other parties are excluded. This is not inclusive governance.
Okay.
If you belong to another party, if NPP is in power, you have no chance. For PNC, NDC, you have no chance.
True.
This is not inclusiveness. And moreover, what we have observed is that at the national level, the NPP and the NDC that have been alternating in power have been competing to bring a high level of development to this country. You can see the infrastructure development, free SHS, national health insurance. Each of the parties, anytime they're in power, trying to do something to raise the living standards of the people. Now, at the local government level, because the parties are not there, they are not competing. There's no competition. Moreover, because you are appointed by the president, you don't even need to do anything to keep your... So long as you are very loyal to the president and the party, you'll be kept there. But
those who defeat this argument will say that if you're talking about competition for development, that the parties, the president's appointees have the responsibility of fixing whatever problems there are, or of developing the place so that it will be counted to the president, during election as an achievement, so that the people will vote for him anyway.
Unfortunately, the system is such that when the president has appointed his or her, you have no female president yet, but to be on the safe side,
I thought of that too.
His or her representative there, then the person thinks that I am not even accountable to the local people. I am accountable to the person who appointed me. So long as I'm in the good books of the president, I am fine. Whether I bring development, I don't bring development. And so it has not worked very well. There are other reasons. Resources are not available. And even in the case of the shortage of resources, when the parties compete, the person who has been elected on the ticket of NPP, NDCC, PP, or whatever, will try to find creative, innovative ways of raising the internally generated funds to a level that will enable the party and the person to maintain power in the district.
So based on this argument, you'd say that people should vote a yes in this referendum?
Definitely, and many other reasons. There'll be more accountability and so on and so forth.
More accountability. Explain to us how.
Well, at the moment,
voting partisan in a partisan manner will bring accountability.
Okay, now let's say some district, Shama district, Ahanta West district. I have now.
Is that where you're from?
I'm from that.
Okay,
I'm
that's
from
fine.
Ahanta West district. I have been elected municipal chief executive of Ahanta West on the ticket of CPP. On the ticket of the CPP. You know, everything I do, the other parties will be, the members of the other parties in the assembly will be closely watching. They want to make sure.
But that won't change if you were just appointed by the president.
We are.
You're on the assumption that you have been appointed by the president.
No, I'm on the assumption that I have been elected on the ticket of the
party.
Elected
on the ticket of the party.
That's what you're arguing, arguing for.
Yes.
If I have been elected on the ticket of the CPP as the municipal chief executive of Ahanta West municipality, all the other parties within the assembly, very well organized, watching my every move, demanding the same way the NDC is demanding accountability of the government, the same way, that doesn't happen at the moment so in addition to the development and everything, accountability will also be very greatly improved.
Interesting. Let's go back to election and the referendum. And we're just talking about competition for development, which then at the end of the day it becomes beneficial to the community, because when people are competing to be in power, they have to show something. You also talk about accountability and how election on a partisan basis will improve accountability, which is what I wanted you to explain further.
Yes, okay.
So you're using yourself as an example.
Assuming I get appointed as the municipal chief executive of Ahanta West, I'm too old for that job anyway. At Ahanta West, on the ticket of the CPP, for example, or PNC or some other party, all the other parties that are in the assembly will checking me the same way the central, the
same way the MPP is being checked by the NDC.
Checking and exposing, and so you become more accountable to the people. At the moment, people are elected on their individual basis, and there isn't too much accountability, and the person is appointed by the president anyway. So long as you're a good boy in the books of the president,
you're done.
You're fine.
And in the same way, the president cannot remove you easily if the people agree with something good you're doing.
That one, so the moment the president's power of appointment is terminated, the power to fire will also go.
Okay. Well, let me just also announce that Kojo Prim is the director of programs with the GJA. He's joining us via Skype. Mr. Prim?
Oh, Kojo, Captain.
Do you hear us okay? Very well.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Very well. So I just started with Dr. Jonah here. Let me take your thoughts as well as far as the necessity for us to vote yes, the necessity for us to allow our country to vote at the district level on a partisan basis.
Yes, first of all, let me indicate that GJ is committed to this partnership by offering our institutional support with JoyNews, and we must say we are very grateful for the opportunity. On behalf of Mr. Afemoni, we want to stand a warm gratitude to JoyNews. But I would say that on the question that you just asked, or we've assessed the reform, the multi-party local government reforms, and we think that on the balance sheet, it offers more benefit than the challenges. We are having a system of governance that we've practiced for about 27 years now, close to 33 decades. And there's a systemic challenge that needs to be completely overhauled. We think that the proposed reforms are going to give it a new political order. It's going to regulate constitutionally the Metropolitan Assembly to now be more developmental oriented.
Okay.
They are now going to regulate their communities. There's also a system where the political parties, that is NDC and NPP, institutionally have benefited from this system since 1992 to the detriment of the many of us. And we think that if we go for this system, the smaller parties whose participation in national election is just a mere symbolic participation because of our business performance will now have an opportunity to participate at the local level where competition in terms of election will be much more closer, and they may also win elections at their strongholds. For example, PNC and CPP. So it's going to now give us a new developmental state agenda where political parties will be more development-oriented in terms of aggregating and articulating community needs for development. So we fully support this initiative from the government, and we're calling on all media houses, all citizens to really turn out in their numbers on 27 December to vote a yes vote.
17 December, 17 December.
Yeah, 17 December. To cast a yes vote for this referendum.
Very well. So I'm coming back to you, Dr. Jonah. Well, we have a major problem with our national elections. People have said that there's monetization of the elections, that it's all about the highest bidder. If you don't have money, it doesn't matter the great ideas that you have. It doesn't matter the sincerity with which you campaign. People will not vote for you. How are we sure that we wouldn't be replicating the problems that we have at the national level to the district level?
Yeah. Many people who have expressed reservations about the referendum have cited this, that, if we allow the political parties to enter into local elections, then all the problems that are associated with political parties at the national level, whether it is monetization, corruption, violence, will also go along with their entry into local government elections. The truth of the matter is that the referendum, if we are able to cross the very high threshold, and you know that we need 40% turnout and 75% endorsement before the reform can be carried out. If you are able to cross this threshold, it will open a completely new opportunity to us also to reform the political parties.
How?
Yes. The political parties have not been in local government for over 60 years. The last time they were in local government, I think, was 1958 or so. Now they are going to enter into local government elections. We need to help them train, enhance their capacity to govern at the local government level. Now,
and you believe that that training they receive will be replicated at the national
they
level?
themselves can even, with a little bit of support. We have not been into local government for such a long time. We cannot go into local government and develop and broaden democracy with the same old characteristics. So you have to give them orientation, you have to regulate them better, you have to enhance their capacity, we should try as, it opens a completely new opportunity to us to do reforms within the political parties, so that they will be able to perform the task of governing the districts that we put in their charge.
Well, Ms. Amprem, I'm coming to you. I know that you have the same position as Dr. Jonah here has, that we should vote yes, which is okay. But I think you should be free to disagree with the point that the problems that we have at the national level will not necessarily be replicated at the district level, but that this will, like Dr. Jonah is saying, give us an opportunity to reform. I mean, we've been trying to reform our political parties. It looks like the parties are allergic to reforms. So, of course, I'm not quite sure how much progress we have made in that regard. But looking at the argument that Dr. Jonah makes, can we use this as an opportunity, in your view? I mean, what do you also think about this proposition? Is it practicable that they will be transferring what they learn at the district level, a new thing, to what they do at the national level?
Yes, you see, the system or the proposal for me is not a straitjacket conceptualization of political thought, and therefore, over time, there could be an amendment. In 1992, we did take a bold step of testing a new system of governance, and we were ready for it. We are at a crossroad where we think this system is not helping this country. In my view, NDC, NPP have continually and excruciatingly benefit from this system.
And they're going to be the same people who will be benefiting from the local, at the local level, don't you think?
Yes, of course. So the benefit is in the hands of very few Ghanaians, in my view, to the detriment of majority of us.
Right.
And therefore, it's time we have to be decisive as a country to decide the way to go. And one of the way to go is let's now be bold once more and test a system that we think that have been practiced elsewhere, in South Africa here, in Kenya, in other countries who have gone by this way, started to show that there is a margin of development that is far outweigh non-partisan system of governance at the local level.
Okay.
And therefore, I think that those who appear to be panel striking, they may have to rescind their decision and support this crusade that let's now together collectively take a system that will push us forward. It's much taught in terms of ideas and knowledge, in terms of turning the communities around, in terms of local economic development, even in terms of bringing the private sector into the space of development at the community level.
So regarding the question that I asked, I see that your answer is let's go for it. Let's go for it anyway. You're not quite specific as to whether or not they.
No. So what I'm saying is that I understand that the proposal may not be the perfect solution.
Okay.
It may not be the ideal solution. In fact, the world over, we don't have a perfect democracy.
Fair enough.
But it's work in progress.
Fair enough.
Therefore, if we weigh the negative and positive, this is the best option for us to go, and we can work around it as we try the system.
That makes sense. So he says to test the system. Final words, Dr. Jonah, before I go to him as well, that going forward.
Going forward.
Yes, and looking forward to 17 December.
Going forward, I think it will be the civic responsibility of every single Ghanaian to go to the polls on the 17th of December and vote yes for this reform to take place. Because if we are able to vote yes and attain the minimum 40% turnout and certified endorsement, we will have opened a completely new chapter in our democracy. We will widen the frontiers of democracy and open the door to even further development at the district level.
I'm hopeful, and I'm looking forward to that day. Ms. Amprem, you have final words to share before we call it a wrap on that.
Once more, I think on 17th December, we are going to celebrate the day if we're able to meet our constitutional threshold of 40% voters participating in the referendum and 95% of casting a yes vote. This is the way to go. We may have some challenge around the road, but let's be bold and test the system as a new political order to regulate local governance for this country.
Thank you very much for joining in the conversation. So, well, you've heard the arguments, and it's up to you to make that decision. Most importantly, it's up to you to show up on the referendum day, which is on the 17th of December, because the number of people who show up is a determinant, as well as the number of people who vote yes. Thank you very much for coming. Dr. Kwesi Jonah is Senior Research Fellow and Head of Advocacy and Institutional Relations with IDEG. And then Kojo Prem, who joined us via Skype, is Director of Programs, the Ghana Journalists Association. Thank you very much, gentlemen.